For many years, Flyrides has brought you videos on the top eMTBs of a given model year. We do this not just because we love you, but because we think it's important for buyers to know what the best options are at a given price point. That is why we always organize our top eMTB list by how much it's going to cost you. As we were putting together this year's list, we got to thinking, which quickly led to realizing that many of the quote-unquote best options available were from big-name brands. And those bikes from those big-name brands were going to cost you well over $10,000. While spending that kind of dough might be fine for some people, hearing that the best eMTBs of 2022 are going to be over $10,000 might have you clicking away right now, but don't! Please. I need this. Because this year we have decided to kick all the higher price tags to the curb and strictly stick to bikes that are going to be under $10,000. You do not have to be spending 5 figures on an eMTB to get something amazing. In fact, you're going to see some of the best stuff is going to be around $8,000, but if it was from a big name brand, it might cost more like $15K. So all you really need to ask yourself before diving into this video is whether or not you are married to those big name brands. And if you are, then we at Flyrides have to say we object and present to you our 2022 top 10 eMTBs. So if you were watching that intro and thinking, under 10K, well, what does that even mean? Is it gonna be a bunch of bikes that are $99.99? No, we are actually gonna start in the sub 5K range. I have got one excellent option for you. In fact, some iterations of this bike are going to be as low as $3,500. I am talking about the Cube Reaction Hybrid series. Year after year, the only hardtail eMTB that even matters to me is the Cube Reaction Hybrid. Part of what makes this bike such an excellent option is that you have, well, options. If you want something entry level so that you can hop into the eMTB world at a minimal price point, they've got the Cube Reaction Hybrid Performance 500. It's gonna run you only $3,500. But if you are fully committed to the hardtail eMTB gang, then you can go ahead and get yourself a Cube Reaction Hybrid EXC 750, or you can meet in the middle and get the one that is probably my choice, which is going to be the Reaction Hybrid Pro 500. Not only do you have different price points and battery sizes and all of that, you've also got different frame types. You've got a low step option and your traditional diamond frame. Having these different frame styles opens this bike up to riders, I would say as short as 4'11", maybe even shorter. And of course, they've also got sizes for you tall guys and gals as well. More and more, I do feel like Cube is one of the few companies out there who not only cares about giving you a hardtail eMTB, but wants to give you one that you are going to want to use. And that is why the Cube Reaction Hybrid kicks off our top 10 list. Like with most of the bikes on this list, we do have a full review of the Cube Reaction Hybrid Pro, which you can see by clicking up there, but make sure to find your way back here so that you can see the rest of the top 10 list. And if you don't come back today, make sure to subscribe so you can remember where to find this top 10 list as you continue to do research into which eMTB you should buy. But for now, let's check out the next bike. Heading back into full suspension eMTBs, we're going to talk about some bikes that are in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. Our first bike in this category makes the list largely because it is the only bike in this price range that we were able to find that does feature the new Bosch Smart System. If you don't know what the Bosch Smart System is, I would encourage you to go watch our full video on it, which will be in the description below. But let's stay on track here and tell you which bike it is. It is the Bulls Copperhead Evo AM1. As mentioned, this was the only bike in this price range that we were able to find with that Bosch Smart System, a 750 watt-hour battery, the eBike Flow app, and of course that Bosch CX motor that you know and love. Going back to our conversation about big name brands, if you look at a company like Trek, the first available bike you can get the Bosch Smart System on is going to cost you $9,200. So if you're looking for a Bosch Smart System and you're looking to save some money as well, the Bulls Copperhead Evo AM1 is pretty much the only choice for you. But just because Bulls knew that they were probably the only company that was going to be offering a smart system at this low price does not mean they have chinsed you on components. You've got a nice all-mountain design, 150 millimeters of travel, along with some plus-size tires on there, and a very popular mullet setup. That means there's going to be a 29-inch wheel in the front and a 27.5-inch in the back. While you're seeing Austin take this thing off jumps and really kind of shred on the Copperhead Evo AM1, I like to see this more as like an OHV, rock garden, single track kind of bike, which are three separate things, so you can see that this is pretty much an all-purpose bike. The way I would probably use it is as a bike packing bike though, because you could pretty easily get in a 40 to 60 mile trip on that 750 watt-hour battery. Let's check out the next bike. Next up, we have the eMTB that I rode first in 2022, and I immediately fell in love. It's the Cube Stereo Hybrid 140 HPC Pro 625. This electric mountain bike is seriously perfect for the type of riding I like to do. I'm talking flowy single track, I'm talking cross-country riding, and I am talking a bike that climbs incredibly well because you know I love my uphills. And the price point, this bike comes in at $57.99, is incredibly low for how well this bike performs and how it's spec'd out. Plus, you're getting a carbon front end along with an aluminum rear triangle that is Cube's twin mold technology. And getting a carbon frame for under 6K is pretty impressive. The 140 in the name means that you're getting 140 millimeters of travel. That's going to be a RockShox Recon fork and then a RockShox Deluxe shock in the back. If you're like me and you want to use this bike for cross-country, single-track kind of riding, this is going to be a perfect suspension setup. You really don't need anything more than this. You're also getting the newest version of the Bosch CX motor, a 625 watt-hour battery, and a Purion display, which helps keep costs down. That display is a place that I will happily have something more analog so that I can save some money personally. Also, for what it's worth, this bike is an absolute stunner in terms of looks. It looks good on camera, sure, but I really cannot describe to you how good this bike looks in person. It is one of two bikes that I've ridden this year that really have blown me away in terms of looks. The Cube Stereo Hybrid Pro sets you up with a stock bike that's going to ride really well out the gate, but it's also nice that you're saving money so that when it's time to change out those components because you've been riding so much, and you can upgrade components as you see fit. Let's check out the next one. I did a literal spit take with my morning coffee when I saw that this bike was in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. I had just completely forgotten. I honestly cannot believe the Orbea Rise H30 is under $6,000 and well under it at that. Coming in at $56.99, this bike absolutely has to be on your short list of bikes to buy in 2022. Honestly, I would probably pay for this bike. The Orbea Rise series, if you don't know it, are lightweight cross-country style bikes with batteries that just won't quit. And that's especially true with these hydro bikes, that's what the H stands for, because it's a 540 watt-hour battery. Now I know you might be thinking there's way bigger batteries than that, but remember, this is a lightweight option with a motor that only pulls 60 Newton meters of torque. I'm talking about the Shimano EP8 RS. On this motor, Orbea estimates that you should be able to get 1.5 times the range than you would on a normal eMTB motor. And in our testing, that turned out to be true. After about 4 hours of filming and riding on this bike, we still had somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of the battery left, which is insane. The H30 is certainly no slouch in terms of suspension components either. You've got a Marzocchi Bomber Z2 fork and a Fox Float DPS in the back. You're getting 140 millimeters of travel. This is a great amount of suspension and great suspension components for an XC bike. On a less powerful motor and a lightweight eMTB, you're definitely going to want a bigger gear ratio to make up for some of that lost power, and you've got it on this bike. It's a 12-speed Shimano SLX derailleur on a 10 to 51 tooth cassette. The main reason the H30 makes our list is because you just do not see lightweight eMTBs at this price point. You can't go wrong with any of the Orbea Rise bikes in my opinion, but to be able to get on one of the most popular lightweight eMTB series in the world for $56.99 is shocking in the best way. Next bike. Moving on to the $6,000 to $8,000 range. Is it weird to say that the first bike we're featuring in this section gets on this list because it stays so similar to the 2021 model? Maybe, but we love the 2021 model too. I'm talking, of course, about the Cube Stereo Hybrid 140 TM. The 2021 version of this bike was damn near perfect in my opinion, and the 2022 stays very similar but with some key upgrades. First of all, you have the opportunity to go with that Bosch Smart system. You can choose to stick with a 625 watt-hour battery if you want, but that's going to downgrade you from the smart system, just so you know. The other big upgrade, I think, is the Fox Float X rear shock. To be totally honest, this rear shock is probably overkill for the type of riding I like to do, but man, does it feel good when I ride it. And if you're riding more like Austin or Hector, or honestly anybody else on the Fly Rides team, I'm definitely the worst, the Fox Float X is the way you want to go. I am an absolute fanboy of the Cube Stereo Hybrid 140 series, and if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, it is definitely worth the upgrade from the Pro to the TM, and the TM is probably the bike that I would go with. There's a reason not much changed from 2021 to 2022, and that's because the TM version of this bike is pretty much perfection, and you just don't try to improve upon perfection. But why don't we see if the next bike can? If you follow this channel, you had to know that a Mondraker was going to make it onto this list, and there might be more later. We're talking about the Mondraker Crafty R first. The Crafty eMTBs from Mondraker are enduro and all-mountain focused, but they keep things nimble with their forward geometry. And they make the most of the Fox 38 float fork and the Fox Float X LV rear suspension with their zero suspension system. Enough with the technical talk though for now, let's talk about how this thing rides. The Crafty is consistently one of the most popular lines from Mondraker, and I think that is because it keeps the all-mountain style of riding at its heart. With 160 millimeters of travel, plus-size tires, and an approachable geometry for new riders. But the straight line speeds that are possible on this bike also make it very popular with more advanced riders. Somehow Mondraker has found a way to ride that line between people who want to do like downhill World Cup style stuff and people who want to do that but aren't quite ready yet but want something to grow into. Basically, the Crafty is that bike. The Crafty R is going to be the entry-level option, and it's going to run you $79.99. But that's because Mondraker doesn't really make anything entry-level. Entry-level is a very loose term for the Crafty R. With that Fox suspension, the Bosch Smart system, and excellent drivetrain, you would probably expect to spend about $10,000 if this was made by another brand. But it's not. It's made by Mondraker, which means you're getting on it for less than $8,000. Mondraker consistently finds ways to undercut the rest of the market, and that is to your benefit. Let's check out the next bike. Next up is another bike that makes the list based on the merits of its father and grandfather. Bit of a case of electric mountain bike nepotism here. I know how these things work. I live in Los Angeles. Gotcha, Hollywood. We're talking about the Specialized Turbo Levo Comp alloy. They added an alloy this year, you guys, for 2022. The Turbo Levo Comps are always near perfect trail bikes that offer some nice XC performance, big batteries, and excellent components. You've got the quiet but powerful Bros S-Mag motor and a nice displayless cockpit. Honestly, I would have liked to see this bike price more in the $6,000 range, maybe mid $6,000, because historically that's what we've seen from this bike. But there's no doubt that if you're okay with paying that big brand name upcharge, this is going to be a bike that you will love. So definitely don't sleep on the Specialized Turbo Levo Comp, but don't sleep on this next one either. It's the last bike in the $6,000 to $8,000 range, and it's another Orbea bike, but this time it is the Wild series. We are talking about the Orbea Wild FSH10. What's different about this Orbea bike? Well, this one's going to be full powered. The full power you are getting comes from a Bosch Performance CX motor, but it is not the Bosch Smart system, which fills a nice little niche that I don't think a lot of other eMTB manufacturers have filled. Basically, what Orbea has done with the Orbea Wild FSH10 is really pumped up the components of the bike instead of focusing on getting that Bosch Smart system on there. So if you feel like the Bosch Smart system is a bit of overkill, then this could be the bike for you. You're still getting the very big 625 watt-hour battery and the newest generation of Bosch motors, but Orbea is giving you a top-notch drivetrain to go along with that motor system. It's the 12-speed Shimano XT derailleur on a 10 to 51 tooth cassette. It's a massive gear ratio and one of the best derailleurs you can get. You're also getting the very good Fox 38 float performance fork and a Fox Float DPS shock in the back. I honestly wasn't sure what I would feel about the Orbea Wild FSH10 going into testing. So much of what I like about Orbea has to do with the Rise series, the lightweight aspect, the XC stylings, but the Orbea Wild seems to keep everything I like about the Orbea Rise and just put it on a stronger bike. The enduro packaging on the Orbea Wild bikes feels like a lighter weight version of an enduro bike that rides really well in downhill usage. Clearly, Orbea excels at that lightweight feeling on all of their bikes, and the Orbea Wild is an excellent example of that. Because it's so lightweight, that enduro bike does feel more nimble too. So if you've got to change lines at the last second or bail on a line, or if you just like making the uphills more interesting, the Orbea Wild accomplishes all of these things. Let's move on to the $8,000 to $10,000 range. The priciest bike on our list, and definitely one of the best, is going to be the Cube Stereo Hybrid 160 Action Team. Year after year, the Action Team has impressed the Fly Rides crew, and the enduro-focused 160 Action Team always tops the list. As usual on the Action Team, you have got top-of-the-line Kashima-coated components. It's going to be a Fox 38 float factory fork, a Fox Float X factory rear shock, and a Fox Transfer factory dropper with Kashima coating as well. But the specs appeal of this bike does not stop there, because you have got a full Shimano XT group set. And of course, as you are seeing on a lot of these bikes, you've got that Bosch Smart System. So that is a top-of-the-line drive unit with a top-of-the-line battery range and a top-of-the-line drivetrain and a top-of-the-line brakes from a top-of-the-line company. You get the idea. It is more expensive than the 2021 model, there's no doubt about that. So the main question I have is whether or not the 2022 model delivers on that bang for your buck. But again, that's just in comparison to the 2021 and 2020 models of the Action Team. Any of the big 2 or 3 brands at eMTBs or some of these direct-to-consumer bikes, you are definitely paying more than $94.49 for this type of setup. So really the only question is whether or not you're trading out that 2021 Action Team for this brand new 2022. Let's check out our top pick of the year. You might already recognize this bike after seeing that beautiful montage I put together, but in case you don't recognize it, we are talking about the Mondraker Level R. We've always said that Mondraker is a real rider's brand, and that is on full display this year with the Level series in general, but specifically with the Level R. And coming in at $84.99, we don't think there is another bike on the market that offers quite as much as the Mondraker Level R does for the price. Part of what makes the Mondraker Level R so great is what makes the rest of the Mondraker bikes really great as well. And that is what we talked about before, that they really do a good job of riding the line of making bikes for advanced downhill riders, but also offering things like the forward geometry and zero suspension that make this bike more approachable for riders just getting into the sport. So whether you're a veteran Shredmaster General or just a beginning postal worker sending single track and tiny jumps, this is an excellent option. I've always been impressed with how Mondraker's zero suspension system seems to be able to make any fork and shock feel amazing. But on the Mondraker Level R, you have also got some excellent Fox suspension paired with the zero suspension system. Up front, it's 180 millimeters of travel and a Fox 38 float performance fork with a fit grip damper. And in the back, it is the Fox DHX2 performance rear shock. You're also getting the incredibly strong 4-piston SRAM Code R hydraulic disc brakes with a 220 millimeter rotor up front and a 200 millimeter rotor in the rear. This is something that I didn't see on any other bike this year. That massive 220 millimeter rotor is going to offer the stopping power you need when you are ripping downhill. You're also getting a SRAM GX Eagle derailleur with 12 speeds on this bike. That's going to offer plenty of climbing capability along with that Bosch CX motor. And it also enhances one of the most fun things about this bike, which is the fact that you can really turn those uphills into a sport in and of themselves. Again, with that nimble forward geometry along with that zero suspension system, climbing on this bike is a ton of fun. So that is our top pick of the year, and those are our top 10 overall. But now we want to know, did we miss any? Did we miss the mark completely? Let me know in the comments below, because I am genuinely feeling a little bit cocky about the bikes we found on this list. For under 10K, I really think you'll have a hard time beating most of these bikes. And I'm talking in terms of performance, components, reliability, all that stuff. We really felt these options offer the best value proposition for you. So let us know if you found one that offered a better value proposition for yourself. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the Fly Rides Electric Bike channel so you can see the rest of our 2022 eMTB reviews, and check out our top 10 playlist so that you can see full reviews of the bikes that we featured today. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and until 2023, go pick up one of these top 10 eMTBs. Bye.